Discover the incredible bond. Little black girl invites a billionaire for touching Thanksgiving dinner. Maya stood at the edge of her kitchen, flour dust swirling in the sunbeams spilling through the small window. The aromatic scent of pumpkin pie mingled with cinnamon as she prepared for Thanksgiving, a holiday that both excited and haunted her. With each chop of the knife against the wooden board, her heart raced. Would the smell of her carefully crafted feast be enough to puncture the silence that often surrounded her modest warm home? What if this year she did something extraordinary? Something that could shatter the invisible walls that separated her humble life from the glittering wealth of Mr. Thompson, the reclusive billionaire next door. Her friends at school openly mocked him. "He's just some lonely rich guy, Maya. Why would you even think about him?" they teased, their laughter ringing in her ears like a relentless drumbeat. But unlike them, Maya saw his towering gates and dark windows as symbols of sorrow, not just wealth. She envisioned a man who likely felt isolated, even within his opulent existence, and her heart ached for him. Was it arrogance or empathy that pushed her to consider inviting him to dinner? She wasn't sure, but the tension bubbled within her like dough rising in the warmth of an oven. Her mother often reminded her of the importance of kindness and humility. Just because someone has more doesn't mean they are more, Maya. Remember that. Those words echoed in her mind as she paced the small kitchen, feeling the pull of contradiction. The holidays amplified her sense of economic divide like an uncomfortable spotlight. Could she dare to invite Mr. Thompson, knowing he lived behind steel gates, untouched by the realities of her world? What if he refused, or worse, if he came and found pity in her offerings? Her stomach churned at the thought of hosting a billionaire when her own life felt so limited. Yet the desire to bridge the gap compelled her to confront these fears. Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. The decision finally clawed its way to the surface, and before doubt could creep in, Maya found herself standing at Mr. Thompson's door. Her knuckles barely grazed the polished wood before a sense of dread leaped inside her. She pictured what was behind that door, a man steeped in solitude, surrounded by excess but devoid of warmth. Would he even want to join her? Would he laugh as she stammered through her invitation? The thought struck her like electricity, each pulse a reminder of her modest life against his vastness. Finally, the door swung open, and Mr. Thompson appeared, a shadow of a man compared to the grandeur of his wealth. His dark eyes held curiosity, yet she felt the weight of judgment behind them. As he cautiously accepted her invitation, a flicker of hope ignited in her chest, with an equal measure of dread. What if the evening unraveled into questions she wasn't prepared to answer? What if the very meal intended to foster warmth became a battleground of economic truth? Maya's mind raced with the enormity of it all. This Thanksgiving would not just be a meal, it would be a confrontation of worlds, a collision that could unravel her understanding of kindness, wealth, and the foundation on which their lives rested. As she turned back toward her kitchen, she wondered, would they approach healing or only exacerbate the chasm between them? Could one dinner change everything, or would it merely expose the cracks in both their souls? The day of the dinner dawned, bringing with it a cold wind that rattled the windows and stirred the leaves. Maya was up before dawn, the kitchen now a canvas for her culinary ambitions. She moved instinctively, measuring ingredients, whisking, mixing, letting the rhythm of her actions drown out the nervous thoughts racing through her mind. Each step felt monumentally significant. What if Mr. Thompson found her meal unsophisticated? What if he arrived expecting a lavish spread worthy of his stature? She quickly shook away those fears as she rolled out pie crusts, focusing on the familiar texture under her fingertips. The sun climbed higher in the sky, illuminating the room and her spirit in gentle golden hues. However, with each hour that passed, the excitement mingled with anxiety. She was inviting someone into her world who seemed to exist in another realm financially, socially, emotionally. The thought was overwhelming. Yet, she understood that this dinner was her attempt at a bridge, a tangible manifestation of her belief that kindness could conquer class distinctions. As she arranged the table, her mother's words played in her mind, a reminder of the value of genuine connections over material wealth. "What if we're not even on the same level?" she whispered to herself, pausing to straighten a fork. Though her heart raced an uncomfortable mix of hope and apprehension, she also felt a flicker of determination. Maybe this was the chance to demonstrate that wealth was not the only measure of value. When the doorbell rang, time suspended for a breath. Maya's heartbeat thundered in her ears. She composed herself, gripping the handle before opening the door with a practiced ease. Mr. Thompson stood on her porch, his figure framed against the fading autumn light. He wore a tailored suit that seemed both ostentatious and oddly out of place on his slender frame. Their eyes locked, and an unexpected warmth flickered in his expression. "Thank you for inviting me," he said, his voice smooth, almost hesitant. "Thank you for coming," she replied, trying to project confidence despite the quiver in her voice. As he stepped inside, the familiar aroma of baked goods enveloped him, contrasting sharply with the stark, cold air outside. And she hoped it would subdue the chill of uncertainty lingering in the air. They seated themselves at the table adorned with her modest decorations, handmade place cards and a centerpiece of wildflowers picked that morning. Conversation started in earnest, hovering around surface topics, holidays, food, and childhood memories. Mr. Thompson shared quiet anecdotes from his life, his voice steady yet revealed hints of a deeper loneliness. Maya listened intently, each word building intricate connections as she savored the simple act of sharing. But as the meal progressed and comfort slowly settled, the inevitable questions arose, questions that pondered the less glamorous realities of economic disparity. "Do you ever feel out of place in your school?" he asked, his gaze probing yet kind. The question lodged itself deep inside Maya. Here was a man of wealth, inviting her to reflect on feelings she had grappled with almost daily. In his presence, she felt an unexpected kinship, a blend of shared vulnerability emerging amidst their stark contrasts. Maya hesitated, weighing the implications of her words against the bastion of privilege he inhabited. "Sometimes," she finally replied, "I feel like the world expects me to prove my worth." She noticed the flicker of comprehension in his eyes, and for a moment, both felt the momentum shift. Their conversation expanded, and the tension began to unravel as they exchanged stories that echoed similar threads of isolation and misunderstanding. She found herself unveiling more than expected, recognizing shared human experiences that transcended their economic realities. His laughter transformed from a polite chuckle to genuine mirth, and for the first time, she glimpsed a man beneath the billionaire surface. Just as Maya believed they were establishing a rapport, a thought interrupted her. Reverie, a creeping doubt that perhaps their differences could never fully dissolve. Could her genuine reality ever truly connect with his? As Mr. Thompson's expression shifted thoughtfully, she could sense his own realizations crystallizing. That very moment an intersection of lives might become a catalyst for change, but doubts lingered in the periphery of her thoughts, unresolved and growing bolder. She questioned what the rest of this evening might hold, knowing the path ahead was still marked with uncertainties, yearning for hopeful resolution. The dinner proceeded with an electric tension that neither of them could ignore. As the meal concluded, with pumpkin pie lingering as a sweet triumph, Maya found herself at a crossroads. While her heart brimmed with possibilities, unanswered questions gnawed at her resolve. Did this encounter merely scratch the surface of a deeper connection, or would it signify merely a fleeting moment, ephemeral as the season's last leaf? She took a deep breath, resolved to face whatever lay ahead. "Mr. Thompson," she began, her voice conveying a mixture of courage and vulnerability, "what if we didn't leave it here? What would his response be? Would he reveal a deeper layer of himself, inviting the empathy she craved, or would he retreat behind the walls built by his wealth? The moment hung thick with potential, ripe for discovery or retreat, the answer undoubtedly defining the crossroads of their lives. The silence after her question felt monumental. Maya's heart raced, the possibilities swirling in her mind like leaves caught in a tempest. She watched Mr. Thompson's expression shift, a flicker of tension crossing his features. Did she dare hope that she had provoked something genuine? Didn't he leave it? He echoed softly, as if tasting her words, contemplating their weight. What do you mean? His tone was laced with intrigue, and for a moment, Maya believed he might just step through the threshold she had opened. I mean, what if we continued this conversation? What if we explored our worlds together, rather than just this moment? She felt the boldness of her proposition resonate between them. Could he understand her desire to create a space where both of their realities were validated? Mr. Thompson leaned back slowly, his gaze piercing but contemplative. I don't want this to be an obligation, he murmured. I've often felt that people want something from me, and it's hard to find connections that are genuine. Maya nodded, appreciating his honesty. That's exactly why I wanted to invite you to show that connection doesn't have to be transactional. We share struggles, even if they look different. The lights flickered as if the room itself held its breath, a fragile moment balancing on the cusp of transformation. Maya sensed the weight of understanding exchange between them, a silent agreement coalescing amidst their disparate lives. As they spoke, the evening stretched on, illuminated by warm candlelight and the gentle clinking of forks against plates. Their exchanges became more vibrant and layered. Maya spoke of her dreams, aspirations, and what it felt like to navigate an elite world while carrying the weight of her own identity. Each revelation guided her more deeply into the fabric of her own storyline, revealing her inner strength intertwined with vulnerability. Sometimes, she marked out carefully, I felt pushed into predefined roles based on my background. But I'm learning to carve my own path. Her voice steadied with each word. With every sentence shared, she embraced the growing empowerment in her voice, a reminder that her journey was valid and deserving of acknowledgement. Do you think those obstacles define you? He asked gently, drawing her into a deeper reflection. His question drove right to the core of her experience. They can, but I refuse to let them, she replied, a new conviction filling their space. There was both fear and courage in admitting that, fear of how it would be received, and courage in defying the narrative that had been imposed upon her. Hours passed, and she began to notice subtle shifts in Mr. Thompson. He spoke more openly about his own childhood, the dissonance of wealth during tumultuous times that felt distant yet familiar. They spoke of moments that defined who they were: insecurity, aspiration, and the raw yearning for understanding. As he unraveled more about himself, she perceived layers of sensitivity beneath his polished exterior, yet, even as kinship began to blossom, inner restlessness bubbled in Maya. But, what happens, she pressed cautiously, when our worlds collide? Will you still see me, or will I just become another piece of your social puzzle? The question hung pregnant in the air, an unmistakable challenge. She feared being swept away in the currents of his privilege, her worth reduced to a curiosity. He paused, his eyes sharpening with focus. If I'm honest, I fear the same. That my world will overshadow yours, he confessed. I want to change that. Feeling the gravity of this realization, Maya understood they were both navigating uncharted waters. She sensed an opportunity to forge a bond that transcended wealth. Opportunities expanded, presenting a chance to create something beautiful from their vulnerable exchange. Suddenly, the weight of the evening's revelations settled into her bones. They had embarked on an unpredictable journey, one that promised to deepen their connection. Yet a question simmered beneath her facade of confidence: the unanswered complexities of their social realities lingered ominously. Could they truly navigate this path forward together? Was the societal divide surmountable when it came to deeper friendships? The answers loomed as shadows threatening to swallow the warmth they had ignited. The room buzzed with palpable anticipation, yet the reality remained: growth was not merely about acknowledgement but the conscious effort to overcome barriers. Maybe it starts with understanding one another more, she suggested hesitantly, feeling the spark of something new flickering within her. I'd like to explore where our lives overlap, where we can learn and grow. Mr. Thompson's expression softened. Would he reciprocate her vulnerability? Let us begin with understanding, he replied finally, his voice earnest. They both knew the implications of this commitment. It was less about physical distance and more about uncovering truths: emotional, educational, and social. As they stood on the precipice of a new alliance, she yearned for dawn's light and clarity. Would the budding connection between them hold the potential to transform not just their views, but their lives? The question lingered in the air, heavy with uncharted implications as they ventured further into the night, daring to redefine the boundaries between them. The moment of revelation foreshadowed impending challenges, stretching beyond walls and comfort zones they built. Now, Maya felt the impending decision as a charge coursing through her veins. This journey was just beginning, leading her to confront the most daunting barrier of all, understanding herself in relation to a world that seemed determined to keep them apart. Would she step boldly into the landscape of possibility, or hesitate at the threshold of the unknown? The following week settled over Maya like a blanket, heavy with anticipation and uncertainty. Each morning, as she navigated through the intricate dynamics of her day, she felt the weight of that conversation with Mr. Thompson linger in her mind, shaping her thoughts and decisions. She had not only extended an olive branch but had also opened a door to something unpredictable and potentially transformative. After the exchange, Maya found a new sense of clarity creeping into her professional life. Her creative ideas, often stifled by self-doubt, began to emerge with surprising vigor. It was as if the act of being authentic with Mr. Thompson had sparked a flame deep within her, encouraging her to own her voice in meetings and collaborations. No longer did she feel the urge to conform to the expectations she sensed in others. Instead, she sought opportunities to present her ideas boldly, infusing them with her unique perspective. The more she engaged her colleagues with her unguarded insights, the more they responded positively. Gradually, she cultivated a space that invited dialogue, collaboration, and even debate, and exchange of ideas that hadn't existed before. This realization became almost electrifying. She fed off the energy of shared creativity, and with every successful pitch, her confidence ascended. Yet, even as her professional life took flight, the question of her relationship with Mr. Thompson remained at the forefront of her psyche. Would he follow through on his promise of understanding? Every time her phone chimed with a notification, her heart raced, quietly hoping it would be a message from him. Weeks passed without any word. Self-doubt crept back in, whispering that perhaps she had read too much into their evening together, that she had overstepped by attempting to connect. With the chill of fall sweeping through the city, Maya found herself at a crossroads. She could either retreat, allowing familiar insecurities to reclaim their hold over her, or she could pursue the connection she had dared to forge, no matter the outcome. Inhaling deeply, she decided on the latter. The time had come to test the strength of her belief, not just in herself, but also in what they could create together. Determined to reach out, Maya crafted a message, her fingers dancing hesitantly across the screen. She invited Mr. Thompson to join her for Thanksgiving dinner at the modest home she had shared with her family. The invitation was equal parts genuine and brave. It represented not just an appeal for connection, but also a symbolic gesture of sharing who she was, her culture, her values, her world. Would he accept those invitations to both her home and her life, despite the contrasts that lay between them? As the hours trudged on after hitting send, dread enveloped her. What if he thought the invitation was presumptuous? What if he saw it as an unwelcome obligation? The tightness in her chest grew heavier with each passing moment, threatening to undermine the progress she had made. Several hours later, an unexpected chime broke her anxious silence, snapping her thoughts to attention. Hesitantly, she opened the message. It was from Mr. Thompson, and her heart raced as she scanned his reply. "I'd love to join. Thank you for the invitation, it sounds enlightening." Maya blinked, her breath catching in her throat. Enlightening. The word carried weight. It was not merely a commitment to a meal but rather an acknowledgement of shared journeys, of the possibility that both could learn from one another, a step deeper into vulnerability. As she meticulously prepared for the gathering, her mind wandered through the implications of this new chapter. She envisioned the myriad ways their worlds would collide. Would she be able to reveal her family's stories, rich with resilience and triumph? Would he understand the fabric of her culture, embroidered with struggles that were uniquely hers? The prospect of opening herself up created a mix of excitement and dread. Thanksgiving approached, and as she set the table, Maya couldn't shake a sense of both anticipation and fear. This was not merely about sharing a meal, It was about unveiling parts of herself that had long been hidden and reshaping the narrative of her identity in light of this new connection. The question simmering in her mind was relentless. Would this dinner serve to deepen their bond or expose the glaring gaps that still lingered between them? How would they navigate this intersection of their lives amid familial warmth and stark contrasts? The moment of truth was looming, and Maya felt the tremors of possibility electrify the air as she awaited his arrival, ready to embrace whatever unfolded before her. Maya stood at her kitchen counter, meticulously arranging a medley of dishes that held both tradition and her personal touch. The fragrance of roasted turkey melded with spices she'd grown up with, creating a sensory tapestry that echoed her past. Each dish was a story, an offering, a bridge to connect the disparate worlds she had often straddled. As she placed her mother's cornbread on the table, she felt an urgency pulsing beneath her skin. The intersection of her cultural heritage with the world Mr. Thompson inhabited loomed over her mind. Would he find meaning in the stories behind these recipes? Would he recognize the warmth of her upbringing or dismantle it with indifferent scrutiny? The clock ticked steadily toward the appointed hour. A flurry of thoughts invaded her mind, rattling her resolve. What if she stumbled over words while recounting her family's history? What if he asked questions she wasn't prepared to answer? The tightness in her chest began to mirror the constricting anxiety of her early days in the office. The tremor of self-doubt had resurfaced, threatening to overshadow the growth she had experienced since their last encounter. Yet, a flicker of gratitude ignited in her. She had chosen to invite him, to take this leap instead of retreating back into silence. This dinner represented more than just an act of hospitality, it was a moment of authenticity and courage. From the very first step of crafting that initial message, she had set a new tone for her life, one that prioritized connection over fear. The doorbell echoed, cutting through her thoughts, and she felt an unmistakable charge in the air. This was the moment she had anticipated and dreaded in equal measure. Mustering her resolve, she opened the door, revealing Mr. Thompson, looking impossibly at ease yet slightly out of place. The casual air he exuded clashed with her tight-knit environment. He was a billionaire stepping into a modest home filled with a cultural richness that was both inviting and daunting. "Happy Thanksgiving, Maya," he said, his smile warm yet tentative. He held a bottle of fine wine, and it felt almost too extravagant for her simple gathering. This contrast was a tangible reminder of their differences, and she felt the pressure of wanting to impress while simultaneously revealing her true self. As they settled at the table adorned with vibrant dishes, Maya's heart raced. She watched him sample the food, her nervous energy coiling into a palpable tension. She was ready to share, to pull back the curtain on her identity. "Ah, this cornbread is incredible. You have to tell me how you made it," he remarked, taking another bite. The genuine delight in his eyes gave her a moment of clarity. "Actually, it's a family recipe. My grandmother used to make it for every holiday," she began, feeling the warmth of her heritage flowing through her voice. With each word, the walls she had built began to crumble ever so slightly. As she recounted her grandmother's tales of resilience, she realized she was not just inviting him into her home, but also into her life, a landscape rich with triumphs and challenges. Yet, the moments flowed both ways. He shared stories from his own upbringing, revealing the complexities and pressures that came with his success. Each exchange drew them closer, highlighting their common struggles against the backdrop of their differing realities. But as gratitude filled the room, a question lurked: would they both leave with an enriched understanding of each other, or would the evening expose the very divides they had hoped to bridge? The warmth they created seemed fragile, a tension pulling between the resonance of shared experiences and the possibility of unspoken misunderstandings. As dessert neared and stories flowed freely, an unexpected silence descended, heavy with the looming question of what this newfound connection would mean for them going forward. Maya felt her pulse quicken. The moment begged for truth, for honesty beyond pleasantries. Would she be brave enough to ask what they both feared to speak aloud? The air thickened with unasked questions, and as Maya looked into his eyes, she understood that this moment could reshape their future or shatter it entirely. What would it take for her to unveil the deeper layers of her relationship with Mr. Thompson, to confront the discomfort that lay beneath the surface? The critical revelation beckoned. Maya's hands trembled slightly as dessert was served, a spiced pumpkin pie, reminiscent of her childhood holidays and filled with the richness of memories. The pie was more than just food, it was a symbol, a reminder of the journey she had embarked upon. She watched as Mr. Thompson savored the first bite, delicately relishing its flavors. "Wow, Maya! This is incredible," he exclaimed, his smile broadening. "You really have a gift." His praise warmed her heart, igniting a flicker of confidence she had yet to fully embrace. But as quick as the burst of pride emerged, it faded into the shadows of her self-doubt. She questioned whether he was merely being polite or genuinely moved by her creations. Silence fell between them, thick and expectant. Maya sensed the slightest change in his demeanor, the joviality was dulled by a more serious undertone. Feeling the weight of the moment, she resolved to take the leap into uncharted waters. The nagging question of whether this connection would remain ephemeral or deepen into something more meaningful loomed menacingly. "Can I ask you something?" she ventured, her voice trembling with a mix of trepidation and resolve. The moment felt monumental, a pivot point in their budding relationship. "Of course," he replied, leaning forward, his expression shifting from casual to engaged. What do you think about where you come from?" She paused, gauging his reaction. "I mean, your background. I see you as this successful entrepreneur, but do you feel connected to where you started?" The question hung in the air, igniting a flicker of surprise in his eyes. A palpable tension crackled as Mr. Thompson took a moment to reflect. Despite the formalities and pressures of the world he inhabited, it felt as though she had uncovered a layer of him that was seldom addressed. "I suppose I haven't thought about it in a while," he began, an uncharacteristic vulnerability creeping into his voice. "There's always been this push to forge ahead, to achieve more. Sometimes I wonder if I've left pieces of myself behind." Maya leaned in, encouraged by his honesty. "But those pieces matter, don't they? It's part of who you are." She felt the conversation shift, the focus leaving her insecurities behind. It was a revelation to herself that her past and culture could resonate with him too. "Absolutely," he admitted quietly, looking down at his half-finished pie. "There are stories there, stories I haven't shared with many people. I worry that they won't fit in the narrative I've built." The confession shocked her. It was a reflection of her own struggle, the constant balancing act between honorably representing her heritage and showcasing her achievements in a world filled with expectations. As they continued to delve deeper into their pasts, Maya felt a mixture of relief and hope surge within her. This dialogue was no longer just about dinner, it was a foray into mutual understanding. She began to realize that their connection wasn't defined by societal boundaries but by the shared weight of their personal histories, yet, a creeping unease stirred in Maya's gut. Would he be willing to confront the truths they were unearthing together? Would he embrace the unrefined aspects of their pasts, or would fear drive a wedge between them? As he looked up, searching her eyes, she knew they stood at a crossroads. The dinner had become much more than a simple Thanksgiving gathering. It was a vivid representation of her desire for authenticity in a world that often demanded conformity. In that moment, a strange certainty washed over her. She would unearth not only Mr. Thompson's story but also her own, unveiling layers long tucked away. The challenge loomed large in her mind. Could she remain rooted in her identity while forging a new relationship with him? The weight of that question threatened to overshadow the progress they had made. While she had faced the fragility of connection, it became apparent that there would be hurdles to navigate. As they both settled into a contemplative silence, Maya steeled herself for what lay ahead. How would they choose to carry their revealed truths into the future? Would they be allies in reclaiming their narratives, or would external forces disrupt the connection they had begun to forge? With a nervous but determined heart, Maya felt a flicker of defiance rise within. The time had come to face the uncertainties that would shape their journey going forward. What uncharted territories would emerge as they ventured deeper into their conversation? Maya felt the air thicken, heavy with possibility and the weight of unspoken truths. The conversation had turned from casual banter to a genuine exploration of their identities, creating a sense of intimacy that both excited and terrified her. She pondered what challenges lay ahead as she sat across from Mr. Thompson, who appeared lost in thought, perhaps grappling with his own revelations. Her heart raced at the thought of the unveiling she had initiated, and she sensed a powerful shift within herself. It was no longer just about proving her worth through her culinary skills, it was about establishing her voice. For too long, she had allowed doubt and conformity to dictate her narrative. This moment marked the beginning of her journey toward embracing her identity: the chef, the daughter of immigrant parents, the storyteller who, like Mr. Thompson, had tales to tell. "I think you're right about the pieces we leave behind," she said, her voice steady, almost surprising herself. "I've always felt it too, you know. That I have to navigate this world in a way that sometimes feels disjointed." Mr. Thompson looked up, intrigued, his expression shifting from contemplation to curiosity. "You feel like you're living two lives?" "Exactly," she nodded, relieved to articulate her inner conflict. "I'm proud of my heritage, but every time I step into the professional world, I feel like I need to downplay parts of myself to fit in." A thought struck her. But maybe that's the problem: the need to fit in at all. What if embracing those differences is what actually sets us apart? He regarded her thoughtfully, a spark in his eyes. "You might be onto something important there. It's easy to focus on progression and forget the roots that got us where we are." As the conversation unfolded, Maya began to recognize the strength that lay in vulnerability. It dawned on her that she shared a crucial connection with him, intertwined stories filled with similar struggles. She could feel the barriers around their pasts dissolving, replaced with a growing camaraderie, a commitment to explore their shared condition of feeling adrift between two worlds. Maya sat up a little straighter, the confidence from his acknowledgement coursing through her. "I've always used cooking as a way to connect with my culture. Every dish I create tells a story about my family, our struggles, and the dreams that brought us here. I don't want to lose that, even as I chase success." A flicker of inspiration sparked within her, igniting an idea. She could create a series of dishes that honored her history while appealing to the modern palates of her guests. It would be a way to embrace the complexity of dual identities while allowing others to experience it through her cuisine. Mr. Thompson leaned closer, engaged. "What if you presented your dishes as a narrative? A culinary journey that uncovers your background, stories from your family that resonate with the flavors?" The suggestion thrilled her, opening a floodgate of possibilities. It felt like the beginning of a project that could not only advance her career but also reclaim her narrative. "That could be incredible," she murmured. But doubt quickly reared its head, clawing at the edges of her enthusiasm. Would anyone truly be interested in her story, or would they just want polished, marketable experiences? The fear of rejection loomed like a shadow, always present. Maya sensed that this was not just a personal dilemma but also a pivotal moment in their connection. "What if I fail?" she whispered, her voice laced with fear. "Then you learn, and you keep going," Mr. Thompson replied firmly, his eyes unwavering. "True success comes from those who dare to be authentic, to take risks, to tell a story that needs sharing." His words penetrated deep within her, igniting a sense of purpose. If she could approach her culinary art authentically, perhaps she could also cultivate authenticity in her life, and possibly with him. Maya smiled, each heartbeat resonating with newfound resolve. As the conversation flowed more easily now, she envisioned the next steps of this journey, not just with her food but also in how she connected with Mr. Thompson. What depth could they reach together if she dared to share her true self? The night wrapped around them, comforting and inviting. But as she glanced into his eyes, a stark realization set in. This could indeed lead them to a place of profound understanding, or it could challenge everything she thought she knew about herself. And true connection, the hesitation mixed with courage ignited her spirit. She would not retreat into her shell, she would push forward. But just as momentum surged within her, another thought flickered: how would she approach this next step? Her determination coiled tightly around uncertainty, leaving her poised for both growth and potential heartbreak. As the evening wore on, she remained acutely aware that while this might have been just the beginning of exploring their pasts, it could also unveil fears and emotional walls neither expected to encounter. The next words she spoke could well define their future, and this realization reverberated through her. What complicated dialogues awaited them as they peeled back layers of vulnerability. She knew they were teetering on the edge of something transformative, and she couldn't help but wonder, would they embrace it, or would fear pull them apart? Maya took a breath, feeling the weight of the choices before her. The moment felt charged, pressing against her from all sides. She was acutely aware of the radiant starry night outside, contrasting sharply with the tumult swirling within. As the quiet settled around them, she felt compelled to steer their conversation towards something deeper. "Mr. Thompson," she began cautiously, "can I ask you something personal?" The question hung heavily in the air. She intended to draw him out, not only for her own sake but to explore the connection they had begun to form. "Of course, Maya," he said, his tone inviting, his curiosity piqued. "What drives you? Why share your story with me?" The question spilled out, raw and unrefined. She needed to understand his motivations, to decode the man who reminded her so much of herself. That he paused, considering his response as he leaned back in his chair, arms crossed. "You know," he said thoughtfully, "I spent most of my life just chasing success, as if it alone could validate my existence. But along the way, I realized that my connections, my stories, they hold more value than what I achieve on paper." Maya felt a flicker of recognition ignite within her. His struggle resonated with her own contemplation about authenticity and self-worth. "What changed for you?" She pressed further, eager to grasp the turning point of his journey. "I started asking myself who I wanted to be for others, rather than who I thought I should be," he admitted, his voice deepening with resonance. "When I began to share the difficulties and triumphs of my life, I found a community that cared about more than just my successes. I discovered that vulnerability has the power to forge real connections." His revelations pulled her in. She saw a path laid before her, one that she hadn't fully acknowledged until this very moment. "Vulnerability," she murmured, savoring the word. "Yes," he replied, leaning in closer. "It's terrifying but liberating. It allows others to see you, not just the polished facade you present. When people recognize your real self, it changes everything." Maya considered his words carefully. The very idea of taking down the barriers she had fashioned around her identity felt like stepping into the unknown, exhilarating yet daunting. What would emerge if she opened up, not just in her cooking but in her life and presentation of herself? The prospect pulled at the edges of her imagination. "I want to tell my story through my food, but I fear that if I bare my soul, it won't connect with others," she confessed, her vulnerability now mirrored back at him. "By nourishing others with your background, you're giving them the opportunity to experience who you are," he assured her. "Remember that fear of rejection comes from a place of self-doubt. What if you transformed that fear into a driving force? Scene by scene, plate by plate." Inspired by his perspective, Maya felt embers of resolve igniting within her. "You're right. Maybe this is my chance to not only express my culinary passion but also to reframe how I view my identity. Perhaps my story is the secret ingredient." A wave of courage surged through her. With newfound clarity, she felt ready to create, to step beyond the safety of what she knew and into the narrative that awaited her. Yet as her excitement built, so too did a looming question: how would her journey of self-discovery impact not only her professional aspirations but also the connection she craved with Mr. Thompson? The atmosphere shifted, vibrant with unspoken potential, leaving Maya at a precipice of self-exploration. What if by stepping forward, I actually lose what I was? She wrestled internally. Or, a glimmer of hope ignited, what if I finally find who I truly am? The last thoughts swirled in her mind like the steam from a simmering pot, each one a flavor waiting to be unveiled. She made a silent vow to herself: she would share her story. Yet, the singular question danced precariously just out of reach. How far would she need to risk herself to find the truth hiding within her? As the evening deepened and shadows lengthened, she realized that what lay ahead was a tapestry of narratives intertwined between her emerging voice and Mr. Thompson's insights. With every interaction, the potential for understanding grew more tangible. Maya looked across the table, catching Mr. Thompson's eyes. She could see the shared anticipation reflected in his gaze. They were both on the brink of something. But she knew that the next step, the vulnerable unveiling of her true self, awaited. Would she have the courage to embrace the beauty of her story? With each beat of her heart, inspiration surged, yet doubt clenched tightly within her. She felt the weight of her choices looming just beyond the horizon. The moment of truth was drawing near. Maya's heart raced with an intoxicating cocktail of excitement and trepidation as she let Mr. Thompson's words settle in. The weight of her own story felt heavier now, encased in the shell of her uncertainty. In this charged space, they had forged a bond, but as vulnerable as she felt, a barrier remained. Do you believe you can truly connect with someone by sharing your story? She asked, her voice barely above a whisper, as if afraid to disturb the delicate thread they were weaving. Each moment felt pregnant with possibility, yet the fear of failure loomed large. Connection starts when you reveal yourself, he replied, a soft smile gracing his lips. Consider this, every time you share a piece of who you are, you're inviting others to step into your world. Vulnerability is a bridge, not a wall. Maya ruminated over his words, aware of her instinct to wallow in self-doubt. For years, she had concealed her experiences behind layers of self-sabotage. What if she stepped over that threshold? What if her truth resonated more deeply than the polished image she projected? The discomfort was palpable. She thought of her culinary dreams, how every ingredient she used was curated to convey emotion, yet her own essence had remained unseasoned by authenticity. As they continued their conversation, her unease transformed into an unrelenting desire to push the boundaries of her craft. What if she took Mr. Thompson's advice and elevated her food to tell her own history, not just the ingredients but the flavors, the aromas, the stories each dish would hold? I want to create a menu that represents my journey, she said suddenly, her voice firming with resolve. Every dish will be infused with my past. It will be intimate and honest. Mr. Thompson leaned forward, eyes gleaming with interest. That's the kind of courage that draws connections, he said, affirming her burgeoning self-acceptance. What's the first dish that comes to mind? Maya felt a burst of energy stirring within her. My grandmother's gumbo, a blend of ingredients that tells of the warmth of family and heritage. It's chaotic but comforting, much like my own life. Then let that be your starting point, he encouraged. Let each dish reflect not just what you love to cook, but who you are. As they discussed her ideas, clarity enveloped her. She envisioned a series of dishes that intertwined personal memories with culinary artistry. The gumbo, followed by her mother's peach cobbler, would invite a taste of her childhood, flavors forged in love and resilience, but even as excitement flourished, doubt lingered. What if others did not connect with her narrative? What if she laid bare her soul only to be met with indifference? Maya clenched her jaw, determined to confront this internal resistance. No more hiding, she declared. I'll capture what is true to me. A newfound resolve thrummed through her veins. Creating a narrative through food is a pathway to become your authentic self, Mr. Thompson said, his voice resonating in the stillness. His belief in her felt like fuel, igniting the ember of creativity within that had long awaited its spark. Yet, even as she relished this burgeoning confidence, the pressing question morphed into a heavier specter: how would she endure the vulnerability that came from sharing her deeply rooted stories? Maya sank into contemplation. Was she adequately prepared to submit her essence to the scrutiny of others? The fine line between exposing herself and potential rejection stretched taut in her mind. As the night wrapped around them with its thick embrace, Maya felt the darkness teeming with possibilities. With each spoken word, she chipped away at her insecurities, but the ghosts of doubt still lingered. The moment came when she would need to define her culinary vision, a representation of her worth and an offer of her heart. The conception may well be her salvation or her deepest vulnerability, yet, standing at that crossroads of creation, she inhaled sharply. Would she take the plunge, fully dive into her story, and afford others the chance to embrace the beauty woven into her path? With uncertainty still pulsing in her veins, she understood that her next step held the potential for profound transformation, a chance that could either break her or set her free. "Tomorrow," Maya finally said, determination surging beneath her skin, "I will sketch out the menu. It's time to make my story real." With her heart steadying, she let the thought wash over her. The excursion ahead would not just be about food, it was about her legacy, who she was and who she could become. But as dawn approached, so did the reminder of the terrifying unknown that loomed just beyond the horizon. Would she summon the courage to share her voice, fully and authentically? The real test awaited, and she felt that liberating thrill, a precursor to the essential revelation just beyond her grasp. How could she transform her vulnerability into a strength that captivated hearts and minds? As the dawn broke on the day of her culinary showcase, Maya stood before her kitchen counter, brimming with ingredients and emotions alike. Today was monumental. It was not merely about demonstrating her cooking skills but about encapsulating her entire journey, the rich tapestries of her heritage, struggles, and triumphs. She was no longer just the quiet girl who felt swallowed by doubt, she was poised to declare her identity and artistry. Each dish she prepared was a testament to the emotional depths she had navigated, especially crafted to come alive with her stories. The gumbo simmered, its flavorful aroma reminding her of family gatherings, warmth, and resilience, an embodiment of her lineage. As she spun her narrative into the dough for her grandmother's peach cobbler, she could almost hear her ancestors' laughter, grounding her in the true essence of who she was. This was her moment. With every whip of the whisk and every chop of her knife, the pressure transformed into palpable excitement. She envisioned the feedback she might receive, not just from Mr. Thompson, but from a wider audience, who she hoped would connect with her passion and her truth. The anticipation was electric, filling her with clarity. This was not a mere chance to impress, it was an invitation for people to understand a multifaceted individual through the universal language of food. Meanwhile, Mr. Thompson paced within the lavish confines of his home, reflecting on Maya's journey. He was exhilarated yet anxious, he admired her courage and was impatient to witness how she would unveil her culinary identity. They had forged a connection amidst contrasting backgrounds, and this showcase felt like an important step towards cementing their understanding of one another. He felt a burgeoning respect for Maya, stemming from her ability to embrace her vulnerabilities. As guests began to arrive, Maya greeted each of them with warmth, her nervousness dissipating into genuine excitement. Among those who gathered were friends from her neighborhood and curious co-workers, each seeking a taste of her world as manifested in the food she prepared. She elegantly arranged the plates, ensuring each dish conveyed a piece of her story. When Mr. Thompson stepped into the room, clad in a tailored blazer but unmistakably attentive, his presence ignited a new wave of resolve within her. She had invited him not only to taste her food but to partake in her narrative. It was a discourse of identities, histories, and hope flowing forth through every carefully crafted morsel. As they sat down to eat, Maya sensed the bubbling tension shift into an atmosphere of shared intimacy. The first bite of gumbo elicited exclamations that echoed a sense of discovery, which gradually morphed into warmth and connection. She walked around each table, articulating the significance of her dishes, revealing the layers of her life entwined in culinary artistry. The stories she shared about her family's journey resonated deeply with her audience, breaking down the walls that often separated individuals by class or status. With each course served, Maya felt an overwhelming sense of affirmation, realizing that her vulnerabilities had transformed into strengths. Her narrative captivated her guests, drawing them in like moths to a flame. Mr. Thompson watched in fascination, his admiration stitched into the fabric of his expression. He saw Maya in her entirety, not just a humble cook, but a bold creator wielding her heritage unapologetically. As the evening flowed seamlessly, an unexpected moment arose when a guest asked what it meant to Maya to share her story through food. Without hesitating, she revealed her aspirations to uplift her community and open a restaurant that would fuse culinary tradition and innovation. The realization dawned on her that this was more than a milestone in her personal journey, it was a milestone for everyone who had ever felt out of place or underestimated. "See, that's the beauty of sharing yourself," Mr. Thompson interjected, standing up with sincerity written across his face. "By owning your narrative, you've gifted all of us a chance to reflect on our own stories." You've broken down barriers tonight. The weight of his words settled around them like a warm blanket. Maya realized that through her culinary storytelling, she had not only validated her own identity but had illuminated a path for others to do the same. In that moment, her self-worth crystallized, taking root in her dreams. She felt proud, recognized beyond her previous limitations, and emboldened to continue forging her unique identity in the professional realm. As the evening reached its crescendo, Maya felt an undeniable sense of closure. Her fears had transformed into concrete achievements. She had reclaimed her narrative, united her disparate worlds, and received unparalleled recognition from those she held dear. Ultimately, she felt validated beyond expectation. Gone were the days of shrinking in the shadows of her insecurities, she stood fortified in her competence and the promise of her potential. In a heartfelt exchange, she and Mr. Thompson exchanged ideas for her restaurant, each offering reflected respect for the other's journey. That night, enveloped in warmth and connection, signaled a new beginning not only for Maya but for their budding relationship. As she locked eyes with Mr. Thompson, both understood this was not a mere intersection of lives. This was the foundation of a significant alliance, where two disparate worlds could forge a bridge of understanding. Maya left the evening floating on a cloud of satisfaction and pride, secure in the acknowledgement of her worth as both a cook and a storyteller. She emerged out of layers of self-doubt and societal barriers into the light, stepping boldly into her narrative. Seize this moment. You need to subscribe now to the channel and not miss our next exclusive emotional stories. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm, your support makes a difference. Comment your reactions and theories about this ending. And for heaven's sake, share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. Don't wait even one more second to share. Show you're a true fan of personal overcoming stories.